very exciting to me, and I'm sure to many of you guests, Anna Rova, who is a world-renowned expert on relationships, unlike myself, certainly. So we're going to get into, if you have any questions about your relationships or gender dynamics or commitment or, you know, communication. I mean, basically, I'm nothing but questions. Please put them, Facebook people, YouTube people, say where in the world you're from. Anna's coming to us live from Australia, where it's like probably 9 a.m. or something.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I'm in Boulder. Anna, so tell me about what you do and how did you come to it and what's your podcast and what can we sign up for free to do?
Yeah, well, thanks for the great introduction, Waylon. I'm not sure if I'm a world-renowned expert.
In my mind, you are. Yeah.
You're for sure more world-renowned than me, but you know, hopefully one day we'll get there. We'll see. But thanks so much for having me.
We have both sides.
Between the two of us, that's right.
Yeah.
I'm in Australia, you're in Boulder, so we're like covering pretty much the whole world here. Thanks so much for having me, Waylon. I'm super excited and really honored to be here with Elephant Journal. I've been a fan of yours for years, you know, so all of the stuff that you're putting out there is great. So it's truly an honor. So in terms of my story and how I came to do this, it's been a long journey. You know, I've been doing this for many years now. And really, when I tell my story, it really started with a breakup. And a quick kind of a caveat here on an interesting fact is that I never saw myself, first of all, as a coach. And I never saw myself as someone who would be coaching in dating and relationships. You know, this is not something I wanted to be in, but it so happened that I was following my calling, and I was also following a problem that I see today in the world, and especially something that women are really struggling with. So,
yeah, well, as you know, all great businesses start with a problem, and then you think of a possible solution.
Yeah, and that's what I saw. Yeah, and obviously it started with my personal story where, you know, it all started with a breakup when I was like 23 or something. It was a long time ago, 24 actually. And when I did break up with my boyfriend at the time, my story of relationships was that I went from one long-term relationship to another long-term relationship, kind of, you know, stumbled upon relationships, didn't know anything about it, was never educated about it. And so when I did break up with my boyfriend at the time, I started kind of, you know, I was a free woman, I was a solo woman, I wanted to date, and I was excited and ready to explore the dating world. And when I started to get into that and kind of, well, how does this all work and how do people date and men and women and everything, I've discovered a whole range of just misunderstanding and misconception. And it was really strange to me how after all of the books on men are from Mars, women are from Venus, and we've been doing this for thousands of years, really. There was such a big gap between, you know, men and women, how we understand each other, how we relate to each other, how attraction works. And so I started researching and diving into it. And this is where I discovered actually David Deida. Not sure if you're familiar with David Deida's work.
He's a kind of controversial person over here.
Okay, yeah, well, that's why you probably think I'm also a little bit controversial, because all of the foundation for my work, one of the biggest foundations is actually feminine masculine polarity in relationships. I have discovered Deida's work and that whole idea of polarity in relationships, and I became obsessed with it because not only I saw this in real life in my personal dating life, but I also saw it everywhere. And the more I dived into the subject, the more I realized that actually polarity is what forms the basis for so many well, if not all relationships between specifically heterosexual, but same sex as well. And so anyways, that led me to a whole...
It forms the basis, meaning it's not a problem. It's actually a dynamic that you could engage in a interesting way.
Yeah, it's an attraction dynamic. It's how things, and if you really dig into feminine masculine polarity in general, I think has a lot of labels behind it, a lot of misconception, a lot of weight, a lot of controversy, because I think people don't really necessarily understand what, I mean, you can interpret it in any way you like, because these are some esoteric concepts that, you know, we can talk about forever. You either resonate with it or not. But in my specific case, the more I dug into that, so what happened with my journey is that I was really curious, Waylon, about polarity and about men. I'm like, why women do not understand men, and men's quest, it seems like their whole life they're trying to understand what women want. There are movies about this and everything. So I decided to start small. And
yeah, it's like a male fantasy. There's that
I know
pretty mediocre movie with Mel Gibson in like the 90s.
Yes,
I think it's titled What Women Want or something. And
what women want.
He gets hit on the head, I think, and he gets like a magical power where he can read women's minds. And finally, I don't actually know if I've seen the movie, but I've definitely seen the trailer.
Yeah, so I decided to start my own podcast. At that point in time, I was a podcast junkie. I listened to podcasts. I was always very entrepreneurial and very curious. So I said, I'm going to start my podcast. It's going to be called Men Inside Show, and I'm going to interview men about women and relationships. And so I started interviewing my colleagues, the men that I know in my life. And I was always kind of a bro and a dude. You know, I was a strong, independent, successful woman. I got along with men a lot better than with women. No wonder, you know. And so I did this cool photo shoot where I'm like sitting there in a dress, and there's these men in underwear around me. There's still pictures on the internet of that. It was really fun. Like, it was a side project for me for about 2 years, and I've had many different conversations with men from all walks of life, from porn stars to chefs to marketers to polyamorous guys and all that. So it was really fun. And then during all of that time, I also dived into personal growth. I actually worked as an online marketer in personal growth. So I had to market and sell programs, you know, dealing with abundance blocks and limiting beliefs and chakras and all of that stuff.
Yeah.
So, and
you
doing
sound
all
like
this,
you fit in like Boulder or Venice, California, if you ever
yeah, I was not that. I was on the opposite side of the world, but still. So, and you know, for me, it was really interesting because I was born and raised in Eastern Europe, and I don't know if you know much about Eastern Europe, Waylon, but people who meditate in Eastern Europe are considered a bit crazy. Meditation and personal growth it's coming in now to the market, but we're so behind it that
we
for
are
me,
a bit crazy. I mean, that's
a little bit.
That's why we meditate.
Yeah. So,
half
you know,
my family is
me,
actually Eastern European Jewish.
Oh, really? That's
but I don't know. I've never been. I'm ignorant.
Oh, you should go. It's like a completely different world. Yeah. So what happened is that after these 2 years, obviously, I was interviewing men. I was reading all the books on relationships. I was diving deep into polarity and all of that. You know, I kind of thought this might be a business, but I didn't. It was a hobby. And so fast forward 2 years, and during that time, I also started traveling the world as a digital nomad. My husband hates that term, but I ended up in Colombia because I always wanted to go to Latin America. And then my second week in Colombia is where I met my future husband, Strain. And so.
And how many years were you into your podcast?
It was about 2 years that I was into my podcast. I think by that time I released like 43 interviews because I was releasing them, you know, every 2 weeks or so.
You must have learned as you went, like you were starting to form some understanding of how you wanted, like who you were looking for, how you wanted to engage with that polarity of genders. And
oh yeah, and during these 2 years, Waylon, I've had my shit show of meeting different men, sleeping around, making all the mistakes, having my heart broken, you know, like I've gone through the whole roller coaster of just ups and downs, and you know, why I was attracting what I was attracting, what love is for me, my relationship with my dad. So all of this podcasting was actually my personal project to heal myself and actually heal a lot of the beliefs that I had around men, relationships, and all of that. And so when I met String, he was my committed masculine man. And I realized after that I actually was doing all this work that would lead me to meeting him. And when I did meet him and we started dating, and there was a whole, anyways, drama there and all of that, you know how that works in Colombia. I kind of, you know, intuitively, I stopped doing that podcast because it's not that it didn't feel right anymore. I knew that this was a personal journey, that I had to close that chapter because I found my man. And so we moved together to Mexico and started traveling. And then we got engaged about 9 months later. A year after, we got married. And 6 months after, I got pregnant. And we came to Australia because he's Aussie. And now we're here. And I'm actually pregnant now with my second child. So
Wow.
that's kind of like
I was wondering about all the artwork in the back. Is that your child's?
Oh, God. She's 2.5, Waylon.
Oh,
she can't do that yet.
She's very talented.
But she might. Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. I have a genius child. So during that time, I was really, so I decided to quit my online marketing job and just take some time off and, write. I decided to write and explore, document my journey, how I'm traveling, what's on my mind, what I'm learning about myself, men, and all of that. And so about 6 months in, I did my yoga teacher training. 3 months after that, 6 months in, my husband was like, I started to crave again to do my own thing, to get out there. I'm someone who loves to be on stage, as you probably can see. Yeah. And, I knew how to do a podcast and people loved the message. And so anyways, we decided, he really encouraged me to pursue my passion. And my passion at that time morphed into, I saw a big problem on the market or in the dating world and relationships, and specifically women, which at that time I called the lie of female success. And so I started my podcast called Girl Skill, which is now acclaimed. And at that time,
what was it called?
It's called Girl Skill. It's still our website, but we're transitioning into claim.com. Yeah. I mean, now I look at that name, I'm like, how do we pick that name? But anyway.
Let me just take a little commercial break. So if someone wants to do a free webinar with you, we have the link in the sidebar. So people can do I want to say course, but it's a free webinar with you. And you specifically focus on kind of strong, independent women who are empowered in their own life, but maybe aren't finding a partner who's up to that, or something seems off there.
Yeah, this training. So this is where what I do now, because when I started, it was really trying to understand and find a solution to the dilemma that women are struggling with, which is the lie of female success, that basically tells us your power as a woman lies in your independence and in your strength, that femininity is weakness, that we need to be like men, that we need to compete with men. It's all about leaning in, going forward, achieve. And that was great. And I was that woman. I'm still that woman, Waylon. But at the same time, I saw that that's not fulfilling for me, and that's not fulfilling for many women. And on top of that, what's happening is that the trend is the more successful women become, it seems like the less happy are they are in dating relationships and finding a really good man.
There's so many contradictions in here, which I love, which is your message is about empowerment and being a strong, independent woman. Certainly nothing is wrong with that. But in doing that, so, there's some sort of patriarchal model that we push these strong women, culture pushes these strong, independent women into, where they mistake femininity for not being strong. And it is strong. And that you can engage in your femininity, whatever that looks like, something like that. And then I love the title, which is from you, Where Have All the Good Men Gone? It's sort of a trick question. When you're in this world of feeling like you can't find anyone, but it's because of something. You're not fully embodying your own strength.
Yeah, absolutely. And that circles all the way back to polarity, right? So we kind of started with polarity and me stumbling upon David Data and polarity. And when I discovered this huge problem that women are dealing with, I really was trying to find a solution. I said, number one, why is this problem happening? What is the root cause of that? And what is actually the solution there?
Right.
And so the more I dug into that, I understood that, in the last 50 years or so, or more, 50 to 70 years from, the first wave of feminism that basically woke up in the 50s, Betty Friedan said, excuse me, we are women, but we're not only housewives and mothers. That's not what is fulfilling to us. We want more, right? We want to go out there and work and pursue our dreams. And we have it. Hello, I'm a woman. I have ambition. It's like, what? Something that wasn't very clear at that point.
Right.
And so throughout all of that movement, you know, for the last 50, 70 years, amazing things have happened, obviously, because I always say, you know, I see so many things today that are talking about how women are disempowered and all of that. And I see that for sure. But I also think that we live in the best time that women have ever lived, because we have the most amount of opportunities today. We have, you could also argue, the most equality that women have ever had. My mother and my grandmother, and I think yours as well, they did not have those opportunities that we have today. Yes, there's still a lot of problems that we're dealing with, but if we look at the bright side, you know, the world is your oyster pretty much if you're a woman. But what happened is that during these 50...
Real quick, my mom, when she was 25, was not 25, the age probably of a lot of women watching or listening right now, was not legally allowed to have her own P.O. box in the United States. So yeah, we're not far enough in terms of equity, but wow, the progress in just my mom's lifetime.
Yeah, or like women couldn't take loans or whatever without their husbands. Like, it's crazy, you know? Yeah. So where we are today, we've come so far. But what happened is also in that process, the swing or the pendulum, in my opinion, has swung too far. So we've gone from, in the 50s, a woman's place is in the kitchen and being a mother, and that's what's fulfilling for her, to going now in 2021 and for the last maybe 10 years, which is, you could call it fourth feminism wave, where it's like your career and your job and your business or whatever is actually the most important thing, right? And if you want to have children, and if you want to have, you know, if you want to be taken care of by a man, that's like, Waylon, don't tell anyone that I want that, because that's not okay. I can't, you have no idea. Like when I said I want a second child, women messaging me and saying, you're so brave. I'm like, what? When has it become brave for a woman to say that she wants a family and she wants children? So there was a huge pendulum swing from here to here. And so today, and you know, our mothers told us, and that's one of the biggest problems and the root causes of it. A lot of mothers told us as little girls to not depend on a man, to be independent, to achieve in your career, and also not mothers, fathers as well, right? Because, you know, once you become a father, I think as a man, a lot of things change in your psyche and mentality. We have been told as women growing up, push, achieve, focus on your career and your independence, make sure you never depend on a man, and then things will take care of themselves. Now, the intention behind this message was, of course, really, really good, because our parents wanted us as women to succeed and be independent and all of that, take care of ourselves. And yeah, that's great. But what that planted in the minds of so many women is that I can't depend on a man, I can't trust men. And then they, as life goes and they experience and limiting those beliefs are built over time. And society and culture today, Waylon tells us this masculinity is toxic, can't trust men, no good men around. All they want is to get into your pants and have sex with you and like look at Netflix today. So, and a woman today finds herself in her 30s or 40s, very, very successful. These are all of my clients, but deeply unfulfilled in the realm of relationships and children. And in fact, when you ask them, Waylon, this is actually what makes them happy and fulfilled. The career and the business is great, and it's an ambition that we pursue. But at the end of the day, when my head hits the pillow, I don't want to talk about revenue goals and KPIs and what I have achieved. I want to know who I am behind all of that. So a lot of the achievement that women have, and I'm talking about myself, I realize that's a facade that I've built all of my degrees and achievements and career success. That's all amazing. And I'm all up for that. But we need to look deep down inside and realize that actually I yearn for a man to come into my life, take me by the hand and tell me, Anna, be ready at 8 p.m. on Saturday, because I'm going to pick you up and take you to a really nice restaurant. We're going to have a great time. And at the end of the day, women want to be claimed by their men, which plays into polarity. So I'm going to kind of stop there for you to direct that.
Well, I love it. I actually told you when we were in the green room before this started, the first time I read, so you have an article up on Elephant, and there's a powerful statement in there that I think a lot of Elephant readers would agree with. And again, it's sort of a trick statement. And I'll mention that in a second. But well, the first time I read your article, I was like, wow, this is like kind of retrograde. Like this is sort of encouraging, like you want to be claimed? What? You want a man to tell you what? This is like the opposite of feminism. And then the second time I read it, I was like, actually, you're just saying you can relax into your who you are and allow someone else the space to be a leader in your relationship as well and in your life. And then the third time I read it, I was like kind of getting into it. I was like really into it. So I hope we have your link in the sidebar. It's titled Stuck in a Pattern of Dating, Disasters, How to Find Your Blind Spot and Attract the Men You Want. And you start by this statement that I think is hugely popular and common on Elephant, which is, generally speaking, is men are immature, emotionally unavailable a-holes who can't be trusted. And when women hear that on Elephant and generally in society, they're like, F yeah. So, but there's a problem there. If you view men as toxic and you view your independence and strength as isolated, as separate from a relationship, perhaps, then you're not going to attract or find a match that is somehow an equal match in polarity. Is that sort of the thesis? Can you explain this whole claimed thing in terms of feminism and in terms of love and, like you said, wanting to have a family and a fulfilling life?
Absolutely. So I think we should start, Waylon, with, and I understand what you're saying, and a lot of women, when they hear that, they're like, but what about men doing all the work? Like, I've done all my work. What about me? I'm not. So there's a lot of this misconception that when we talk about feminine and when we talk about polarity, that you need to be this weak damsel in distress, delegate all the responsibility for your life, your money, and everything to this man, and just sit there and go back into the 50s. That is not the feminism that I live in, and that is not my reality. I run a very successful business. I'm a mother, soon to be, of 2. I'm a very strong, ambitious, and independent woman, just like a lot of my clients. And I think that, because a lot of relationship and dating advice there that's based on femininity, I think a lot of strong, successful women see a woman who talks about femininity and she's like in flower crowns and walking in the woods. And, for example, if you ask me, I'm not a woman who's going to be stay-at-home mom with her children. I really respect women who choose that, but I'm not someone who's going to choose that because that's not me. I'm going to go crazy. So let's talk about the fundamentals, because I am my conviction is so strong in this message and in this dynamic, because I've probably talked to more than thousands of women.
Yeah.
As to what kind of a man are you attracted to. So for everyone listening, this is a very, very, very easy exercise to understand this, because I can talk in theory forever. But you really, if you're a woman, ask yourself the question, what kind of a man are you attracted to, right? And what do you want, and how do you want to feel in a relationship? These are 2 questions that I've asked more than thousands of women that I worked with, got on discovery calls, all of that. Number 1, most women reply, I'm attracted to a man who is assertive, who knows what he wants, who takes charge, who has his shit together, his life together, and who would court me and pursue me and take me by the hand and tell me, as I said, be ready at 8 p.m. I'm going to take you out. That is the dance that women are very much craving. We are attracted to a man who is in his masculine, how I call it. And the masculine is all about taking charge, knowing where he's going. And there's an assertiveness and a confidence that I can trust this guy because I can feel safe. I can feel protected with him. And I can also feel that I could be provided for. And I know provided for is like, so controversial for many women. But Waylon, when I got pregnant for the first time, it was very clear. All of my feminism slogans went out of the window. Because when I was throwing up in my bathroom, in my first trimester, forget about work, forget about everything, because I couldn't. I literally physically couldn't. And so when we ask women how do you want to feel, they want to feel safe in a relationship. They want to feel heard. They want to feel seen. David Data talks about this idea of, I want my heart to be open, right?
Gosh,
I want to be...
I'm stuck on the 8 p.m. thing, which I don't think is bad. I'm just curious about it. How does, if I'm in a relationship, if a hypothetical me is in a hypothetical relationship with you, and I say 8 p.m. I'm taking you to dinner on my big horse, and it's going to be amazing, or my big pickup, and I'm being all assertive. How is that listening to you? You may want to go to a vegan restaurant, and I may be taking you to a steakhouse. How is that being present or open or awake? Or
Yeah, good question. First of all, you probably wouldn't use that voice, because I think you're impersonating a man who is in his unhealthy masculine, or a-holes, how we talk about. So
right.
When we talk about masculinity and femininity and this whole polarity spectrum, we have to understand that there's unhealthy masculine and unhealthy feminine on both sides. So a masculine man is a man who stands strong in his ability to take charge, to hold space, right? And to just take care of things and hold this world together, let's say. Mm-hmm. The unhealthy masculine is that takes that same quality of masculine achievement, direction, go, go, go. It's all about a goal. This is why men are always interested in sports, in the little death. Ejaculation is all about little death, right? Like from point A to B, what is the shortest path to that? A woman or a feminine essence being, which is most women, doesn't think like that. In my system, that's not how I work. I work in cycles. I might go A, B, C, D, F, and F is my B, where A to B is yours. And so in that way, the unhealthy masculine, what he does, he takes the same qualities of a masculine, but creates win-lose situations, take advantage of them, and creates a win for himself and a lose for others. These are all the narcissists. These are men with big egos, who do not have that capacity to know themselves, to not put their ego first, right? But the same thing.
Distinction, because we're not talking about aggression or bullying or insecurity, the sort of toxic insecurity, but we're talking about being grounded and being relaxed and in some way taking care of and thinking about our partner.
Absolutely. So I look at you, Waylon, when you talk about this. My body as a feminine essence woman relaxes and lets go of control.
Yeah.
This is a man when I'm with, and I know women know what I'm talking about, that you can just breathe out, right? And so on the same spectrum, it's very important when we talk about healthy, unhealthy masculinity, we need to talk about healthy, unhealthy femininity. We have been too much skewed in our culture today talking about toxic masculinity, but there is exactly the same thing happening on the opposite side. So I hope this explains this idea that, I'll pick you up at 8 o'clock. There can be one man who's saying, I'll pick you up at 8 p.m. if you don't show up. There is going to be trouble. That's not okay.
Yeah, no.
But there's something about a man who is assertive, who knows what he wants, and who courts you and pursues you. Women want that, the yearning and craving for it. You have no idea how many women are like, this guy doesn't know what he wants. He's wishy-washy. Like, just take charge. That's what's attractive. So fundamental, and Waylon, this is not something I've studied this, and the roots of this is not actually in some esoteric concepts. The roots of this are in biology and evolutionary psychology. If we study, sexual selection, that's what it's based on. And this is a huge subject. I read a PhD whole book on this whole subject. We don't need to get into it. But the idea and the premise is that as long as women are the ones to get pregnant, carry the pregnancy, birth, and nurse, essentially this is what it comes down to. Our physiological differences and psychological evolutionary differences drive this attraction behavior, and it's all unconscious. It's the peacocking. If you look at the natural world and the prime animal world, it's the peacock. All of you guys, what are you doing since you are teenagers? You're just peacocking, showing off your resources. And, the woman, the female will always go for the man who has the most amount of resources, because subconsciously in her body, she wants to be provided for, because she knows that. And this is not even in our minds. Our body and our psychology drives that subconsciously. I want a man who's going to take care of me when I'm going to have children. On the other side, men are looking subconsciously, evolutionary speaking, to impregnate as many women as possible. I know this sounds bizarre and weird, but we're animals. And so they're looking for the female who will be the most fertile, the youngest, and so on and so forth. So anyway, so much to talk there, but
there's so much there that we could get into, because there is peacock. I understand the term peacocking in terms of men, like we like to wear our big cowboy boots or our cool shirt or whatever and prance around. But there's peacocking in a sense in many traditional cultures where the women will wear their dowries on, the beautiful turquoise jewelry, or they'll wear, they'll peacock in their own way, whether it's with their bodies or their wealth or their beautiful outfits, and men do that too. So we do it in different ways, sure, but
it's a different energy though,
okay.
Right? Because the women do it to attract attention,
okay,
and to attract the males who are going to compete for them. But the men do it for the reason of competing with other males, to attract attention, to claim the female. It's the same thing of how we decorate ourselves. And of course, a woman goes out there, but a woman goes out there, Waylon, sits at the bar, orders a drink, and waits to be approached, right? But you as the guy, you go into a bar and you are drawn to approach. That is the dance that we're doing in dating and in relationships as well. It's a very different dynamic, right?
It's so complicated, this stuff too, though, because if you're an empowered woman and I'm sitting at I'm not trying to make things awkward here, but I mean,
no, that's fine.
If I'm sitting at a bar talking with my buddy and some empowered woman walks up, I'm engaged now. But if someone empowered woman walks up, also there's a pandemic, so who's been in a bar lately? But I guess Australia has been. But I love that. Like, what's wrong with that? An empowered woman who knows what she wants and goes out and gets it or asks for it, that's great. So some of this is cultural to me, which feels fine or unhealthy. Sometimes cultural things are kind of fun. But sometimes they're just unhealthy. They're old fashioned.
That's true. But Waylon, in the long term, and I've worked with so many women to confirm that, in the long term, when a woman goes and gets what she wants and asks for what, like, I'm going to go and approach, great. Yeah. But in the long term, that is not what's fulfilling to a woman. You're going to end up with a man who is either playing the 50-50 game with you, where it's like you, me, who's taking care of the child, 50-50, everything. Or you're going to end up with a feminine man where you're going to be taking charge of everything, the household, the finances, the kids, and you're going to be parenting him. And ultimately, that would lead to unhappiness in relationships for a woman long term. In the beginning, it might be great.
Yeah. Professor, can I ask a question? So,
sure.
I love this. This is so complicated. And we are inviting, just a reminder, you can do a free webinar with Anna. The link should be in the sidebar. And please ask a question. We have 2 questions. If you ask a question, I will ask your question, unless it's an awful question. But it's funny, when you were talking about this bar dynamic thing, I was thinking about this incredibly empowered woman who I've known all my life. I grew up with her in the Buddhist community. And, I adore her husband. He's a good friend of mine, maybe ex-husband now. And he was by no means feminine, but there was this sense that she was in charge of everything. And ultimately, I don't know why, I'm not going to speak for their relationship, but ultimately that dynamic didn't work for them. And they tried an open relationship, and then they've been letting go of the relationship in an amicable way. So overall, it was good. She was an incredibly empowered woman. But yeah, I think there was some sense of, and she was the kind of woman who would go up to any man in any bar and say, let's go.
Let's go. Yeah, let's go. I'm ready.
8 p.m. Yeah.
Yeah.
And you're saying something's wrong with that, but not because you're anti-feminist, but because it's almost like it's a further wave of feminism where you're allowed to relax.
There's nothing wrong with that, Waylon. Right. Like, if you want to do that as a woman, great. I respect that. I congratulate that. And that's fine. Right. And if you want to live like that in relationships and your dating life, that's also fine. Some women really prefer being in charge of everything, of their men, of their finance, of the family and the children, everything. Yeah. But in my experience, is that a lot of women get burnt out and really exhausted because the female psyche and the female system is not built to carry all the responsibility on their shoulders, especially when it comes to children. Because as women, like I'm currently pregnant now, you have no idea, my breasts enlarge in like 3 times. I'm like, I'm a mammal and a factory for producing milk and producing babies. And every woman who's been pregnant knows what I'm talking about. And so when this is happening in my body and I'm preparing to give birth and nurse and go into my cave, I can't be bothered with the outside world of work, of responsibility, of paying the bills. I cannot think about survival at that point. I want to be taken care of and protected. But the problem is that that's not only happening in the first 9 months of pregnancy and maybe another year or 2 while the baby, is growing or whatever. I have a toddler. This actually carries throughout the whole dynamic and the whole relationship. So when a woman knows how to let go of control with her man and surrender, it's a beautiful dance of polarity where it's not a 50-50 game, where it's actually 100. You're letting your man take care of the things that he needs to take care of, and you taking care of all the other things as well. So what I'm saying is that it's totally okay to get to the bar and ask for what you want. But what that might lead you is you might end up with a man who you're not going to respect, the man who doesn't take charge, and who ultimately you might not be happy with.
I could have this conversation for 8 hours. I don't know how. I guess you've done it 8,000 hours, so that's not saying that. But let me read a quote that is by you. It's in this article, which I love, and I think it fits with what you're talking about. It's in your article, which I hope we've also linked. We don't need to learn more tips or tricks. We need to learn to let go again and again, shedding layer by layer this thick, tough skin that we've been piling up over the years. So what does that mean to you?
What that means is that the dating and relationship industry today is providing you with the tips and tricks and kind of tools of what to say and texting guide and like, here's what to say. But it doesn't provide a woman on the actual mechanism that works in dating and relationships, understanding polarity. And most importantly, Waylon, it doesn't work with women on excavating beliefs that they have about men, about relationships and themselves, and reframing that. Like the quote that you mentioned in the beginning, the world is full of assholes and men who don't take charge, blah, blah, blah. Well, you got to ask yourself why you're attracting these types of men. Because if this is a pattern for you, chances are it's not about men, but it's something about you. Because there's plenty of women around, including myself, where I live in a world of great men. Waylon, you are one of them. I'm talking to you today. The world is full of great men out there who are ready to step up, ready to take care of you, ready to show up in a powerful masculine man to build a world together with women. But you got to let them, and you got to change your perspective, your belief system that you have about men that has roots not only in your life, but also ancestrally. We're talking about generations and generations of women who've suffered, been betrayed by men, been abused by men. So if you want to stop that cycle in your own family life or generation, the work has to be done. This is deep work in rewiring your beliefs about men so you can start attracting different types of men. And that's what, in my work, that's what I focus on, changing women's beliefs.
And that's so important also, which maybe is your next course. I was hoping your next course would be coaching men, but your next course could be coaching these independent, strong women with their mothers. Because like Cara, who I think you may know, she works at Elephant. She's a mother, and she's saying, I'm not going to buy into all this men are toxic, all men are toxic, because look, I'm raising 2 boys.
Yeah.
I want them to become kind, sane, grounded, good human beings, good men. So, not all men are toxic. And I think in the Elephant Journal world, too often there's yes, there are toxic jerks and sleazebags, and there's all this like unhealthy dynamics on both ends. But if you look for a good, kind, grounded person, maybe.
And Waylon, I would argue that those toxic men are in the minority. They really are in the minority. If you look around, there are good men everywhere, and they are in the majority. This is the world that I live in, and part of it is that I choose to live in that world. But men are fathers. Men have been brought up by women. So when you really dig into that, It's not that the world is full of toxic men. It's a bunch of idiots and assholes that do not have their shit together, who have been, by the way, hurt in the past by women and by the world, and are now doing revenge. But now and by men, all the uncovering that's happening with toxic masculinity, yes, that's absolutely true. But that is, I believe, Waylon, is the minority. And that's what women need to understand, because the world is full of great men.
Love that. Yeah, me and a lot of my good buddies who are all good, decent, kind men, a lot of us, not all of us, but a lot of us didn't have fathers or had bad relationships with our fathers. And we had to grow up and say, kind of make almost a pact with each other or with ourselves, and just say, you know, I'm going to grow up to be a kind, good father.
Yeah. And that is men's work, Waylon. So to all the women thinking that men are not doing the work, that is wrong. I've interviewed so many men who are doing men's work. They're all on my podcast, all on my website. Men are waking up at the same time. But let's stop thinking about, as women, what are men doing, and focusing on ourselves and what can I do to reframe my belief system and attract great men and contribute to men's awakening, not in a bitchy kind of way of revenge and bitterness, but actually lean back and become curious about the male journey. I've interviewed so many men, exactly what you said, Waylon. There is a reason that there is a loss of masculinity and men are turning toxic, so to say. Yeah. There's many great books. One of the books is The Boy Crisis by Warren Farrell that I've interviewed on my podcast. There's so many problems that men are dealing with that women do not know about or don't understand. So I highly recommend educating yourself on that, because it's a two-sided coin all the time.
So maybe it's a good time for a round of questions. Anyone who asks a question, we will try to get to it. Anna has said she's willing to be here. We're doing a 5-hour marathon together.
I'm just going to do some toilet breaks in this pregnancy, but I'm ready, Waylon.
You're doing well. No, we'll keep it short, but let's do a couple questions. And a reminder, you can do a free webinar with Anna. The link should be in the sidebar. Also, her article is in the sidebar. Let's see. If you can click on ask a question as well, but I'll deliver it. I'm going to ask you a question and you're going to answer it. I'm kidding.
Sure.
Just trying to do the 8 p.m. thing. I'm just practicing.
You'd be surprised how many women would be like, oh my God, yes, just tell me where to be. Pick the damn restaurant, make the plan, make the reservation, and tell me where to be and what time. I'll show up.
It is interesting to hear that, because I have always tried to be a good partner in relationships, a good man. And it is confusing, because I always think, well, I should ask, where do you want to go? I should ask, and you should. And the process of getting an engagement ring with my partner was a delightful and really positive experience of that partnership, where I am attracted to certain kinds of things. Like I am into the environment. So I want an antique ring, not something new. She is into sapphires. I'm not into that, but I wouldn't have known that if I hadn't asked her. And then we found sapphire that was sort of beautiful, deep Rocky Mountain sky blue, and lit up with the sun. And I liked a lot of sapphires.
Waylon, anyway. Did you propose to her, or did she propose to you?
Oh, I got to send you the video. I proposed to her. So both. I mean, we talked about getting engaged and getting married and children. I always say I'm a big believer in open communication around major life decisions. But the actual proposal was a 100% surprise, and I worked on keeping it a surprise for a fairly long time. And
why did you do that? My question is, why did it have to come from you if we live in an empowered world that is 50-50?
Yeah.
Why did you propose and plan the surprise? Why did not she do that, or why didn't you agree to do it together? See, there's something in that.
I asked her afterward, because now that you mentioned it. Yeah. No, I mean, I would have, honestly, if she had dropped to a knee and proposed to me, I would have been, that's great. I would be delighted to marry you. Yes. And I probably would have cried. But it was so fun organizing it, and it was so fun. So I invited tons of her friends and tons of my friends, and it was all a surprise. And they all jumped out from behind the bushes with these letters that they had all hand painted, and some children had hand painted. WILL, will you marry me, with the huge mountains behind. And it was wonderful. The process of figuring out when the heck we get married is actually more complicated, because it's more of a group organizational decision. I'm not organizing the
Yeah,
wedding.
but there's something in that. I want to interrupt you. When you're talking
Please.
about planning the proposal,
Yeah.
you see my body, like my body language, instinctively, unknowingly, I'm feeling like a little girl. When you talk about, because the marriage proposal is the ultimate claim on a woman, and a woman feels very different when she's being proposed to as you would feel if she would propose to you. It would be very different, because there's something about a woman's psyche that gets into this like little girl, you know, like it's so interesting when we watch women who are very successful, as you call empowered, become these women who can just relax and let go, and we want to be held, you know. It's a very feminine thing.
And I think we're trained, both men and women in 2020, to think, 2021, to think that being what you call a little girl or relaxed, or that there's something bad about being weak or vulnerable. There's something bad about relaxing or letting go.
Surrendering. Yeah. So surrender is the biggest. A modern successful woman doesn't know how to surrender, but she needs to understand that is whatever is helping her to achieve success in her career or business life. It's quite the opposite that's needed when you are dealing with men, because masculine men who we are attracted to do not want to compete with us. They do not want another dude. They want a woman. They want to be in a polarity dynamic with a woman who knows how to relax and be present. When I'm on a date with you, Waylon, I want to laugh and I want to be free in my body. I don't want to think, where's this going? And here's my checklist. Are you my next husband? And have you dealt with your childhood trauma? That's all such BS. We want to be in this dance of courtship and polarity. We want to have a lot of fun. We want to be free. And if a woman wants that, she has to learn how to get out of her head, into her body, and into her feminine, which is playful.
But you probably need to be in your head or be discerning until you've weeded out the douchebags, right? Like you.
Well, you won't be attracting the douchebags, or your radar for douchebags is going to be so, like, when a woman is embodied in her feminine. Look, when I'm talking about feminine, I'm talking about a woman who knows herself and has her boundaries.
Right.
An empowered woman, when you say empowered, that word is like weird to me, because to me, an empowered woman is a woman who's full in her body and knows who she is. And knows that femininity is power, that I don't need to be a man to prove everything to everyone. I'm a woman. This is my body. I know what I want. I have very strong boundaries, but I know how to relax and how to work with my psyche, with my cycles, and with my body.
Yeah. And I want to acknowledge that, you know, a lot of this is going with sort of cis gender dynamics, and there are all kinds of, you know, all kinds of gender dynamics and a whole rainbow range of them. And I'm certainly not equipped to talk about or represent any of them except for myself. But anyway, it's complicated stuff. Let's get to a question. How's that?
Yes, let's do it.
Okay. We almost got to a question.
I know.
So here's a really simple one. It was the first one from Michelle. I'm very interested in your response. Mm-hmm. What is the best response when a man ghosts after a few months of intimacy?
Good question. We talk about this in the program a lot. So if a man ghosts after a few months of intimacy, this is so packed, Waylon. I can't give what is the best response here. Like,
well, can I just acknowledge that even the way you just began to respond or not respond has integrity, because too many of these programs, you know, everyone wants to be a little guru and do these tips and tricks, and you're not about tips and tricks. You're about actually unpacking. You had some better term for it, but getting down there so you can actually.
Yeah. So if me and thank you. And and, you know, this is not just, I don't answer questions like this only to my client. If you would be my client, Michelle, we would get on a group call and we would discuss the dynamic there and why and how. But even if you would ask me this question on Instagram, and I encourage you, if you're interested, DM me on Instagram, and I send voice notes and things like that. So I would need to actually talk to Michelle to ask her a few questions. For example, you know, if a guy is ghosting you after a few months of intimacy, number one, is this a pattern that you're seeing in men? Are you getting involved with men very quickly, and then they're ghosting you. What kind of men have you been attracting? What is the pattern here, right? And then we would talk about this idea of a funnel, right? I talk about, this is kind of a dating trick, but this is so important that I teach women all the time. You need to have a dating funnel, which means that you need to be seeing different men. Dating is dating. It's like, I always say this metaphor, it's shopping for shoes. You need to see different men all the time and put yourself into the best position. The biggest problem that a woman does is that she finds a guy, or he approaches her, or whatever, however that works, right? It's all great. You start seeing each other, you start sleeping with each other. And in a woman's mind, a couple of weeks pass, she's seeing the guy, she thinks they're in a relationship, especially because they have intimacy. But in his world, he's not in a relationship at all. The guy might be seeing other women, the guy's in his world or whatever. She's attached now because intimacy is there. And this is, again, evolutionary psychology. Sex for a woman is very, very different than a man. That's why I'm always advising women to be cautious when they enter sexual relationships. And I'm that type of a woman. Waylon, I would have a lot of, first date, sex, whatever. I could never abstain. But so I have to acknowledge that. But at the same time, a lot of women make the mistake thinking they're in a relationship. So number one, you should be dating many men at the same time. And it doesn't mean you need to sleep with all of them, but you need to constantly expose yourself to different types of men. So you prevent a situation, which is a situationship that I call it, right? There's only two states that a woman can be in her dating life. Number one, you're single. Number two, you're in a relationship. That's it. There's nothing in between. If you find yourself in between, we've got a problem. So you got to set up your boundaries and get very, very clear. And I wrote an article of how to deal with situationships. So in Michelle's case, I would need to ask her more questions and get clear on her situation. And if this has been a pattern, then I would dig deep into why, right? What is the reason that you've been attracting these types of men? What kind of belief systems you have? And this is all the work that we do in the program. So unfortunately, Michelle, I don't have a text guide for you, what to say, what to respond. Maybe it's an issue of boundaries as well, something that I wrote about as well. So that would be my answer to that. I know maybe that's not what you want to hear, but this is deep. There's something
deeper
deep.
What I would want to hear if I were Michelle, because so much of it you would need to talk with Michelle directly and find out more. Otherwise, because it's not always a one-size-fits-all kind of thing. But to me, my answer, no one's asking me, but my answer or my thoughts around that as a man would be, if you've been in an intimate relationship with me or with another man for months and then I'm gone, like that is such a disconnect between how you're feeling and then how I'm acting. There's got to be more open communication. Where are we going? Who are you? What does this mean? I feel like open communication is such a undervalued thing in dating.
Right, but it's also, how do you communicate with a guy who disappears and ghosts?
Well, I mean, maybe you should have communicated in those couple months of
maybe, but at the same time, I think Waylon
didn't. But if he's out of there and there's no communication, like, wow, you guys are on different pages.
So I think that communication, to be honest with you, is extremely important.
Yeah.
But a lot of the times communication is not enough, or it's just on the surface, because a lot of the times, like with Michelle's case, I think personally that there might not even be a need to communicate right now, right? Because
maybe it's too late now.
Well, it's too late now.
In that 2-month journey.
Right. So a woman energetically knows whether the guy is there or not. So why did she allow herself, you're right, to be intimate with a guy for a few months and did not see the signs or did not feel that this guy is just going to disappear? So he's emotionally unavailable, period. So we need to look at, perhaps if this has been a pattern, how might you be emotionally unavailable that you did not see this coming and you ended up in this situation?
Yeah. Yeah, and generally, I would say if some guy is not, that's where so many of these articles on Elephant come out. We have all these articles that are like, every one of my ex-boyfriends ever has been a total narcissist and toxic, and I'm an empath and I'm perfect. And you're always like, okay, only a narcissist would say that everyone out there is the problem and I'm perfect.
Mm-hmm. So I want to share something, Waylon, very important. I've read a book that I highly recommend, especially for those who are in marriages. perhaps even having problems in the bedroom. There's a really good book called Passionate Marriage that is not very popular, but I knew this intuitively as a concept, but when I've read it, we have to understand that, well, I actually talk about this in the webinar and I write about this. Men are our mirrors. Our partners are our mirrors. We always attract an equal in terms of our energy, in terms of our deeper rooted beliefs, and in terms of how we see ourselves. If a woman has self-worth issues, she feels like she's not good enough, she doesn't deserve love, I'm not worthy of love. If this is your belief system deep down inside, because these are the core 3 rooted beliefs, you're going to keep attracting men who are narcissists, who are emotionally unavailable, and so on and so forth. You always attract an equal. The situation you just described, that's ridiculous to think that all men are narcissists and I'm this woman. I don't understand what's happening. Well, you've got to look inside. Yeah,
I think that goes for men too. There's this great quote that says, if you meet an a-hole in the morning, he's probably an a-hole. If you meet an a-hole all day long, if all you run into is at jerks,
probably you.
It's probably you. So, you got to work on yourself if you're seeing that pattern, was the first thing you said in terms of Michelle. All right, one question down. That was great. This is so good. I want to sneak into one of your webinars, courses. Audrey, I've listened to you speak about not asking men on the first date if they are looking for something serious. How can we still approach dating in an intentional way if we are looking for something serious? Should we share our dating vision with them?
Yeah, great question. So I actually have, for everybody listening, I have I didn't package it as a course because it's intentional dating is actually something, a whole module on men and intentional dating, the 3 stages of dating in the program that I teach, my coaching program. And then I have there what I call 10 rules of being claimed. And then I took all of these rules and I turned them into IGTV live episodes and podcast episodes. There's about 11. So there's 11 rules of being claimed. You can find this on my IGTV or on my podcast. And so one of them, and it's all about how to create your funnel in intentional dating. So Audrey, to answer your question, when you date, we have to understand that when we date, we're dating. The dating game, the purpose of the dating game, number 1 is to have fun, right? It's fun to go on dates. And dating is supposed to be fun. I talk to so many women who are just burnt out, right? Don't want to date anymore.
Hate dating.
Online apps. This world, where are all the good, So if that is your reality, then that needs to change. How you approach dating is so important because, again, if you're a woman and you're burnt out from dating, and especially if you have all these beliefs, what kind of a date you're going to have on your first date, right? You're going to come in, you're going to have a poker face, and your expectation, it's a vicious cycle. You expect men not to show up. You expect this to be boring. It's going to be boring. So don't do that to yourself and don't do this to the men, okay? So how you do intentional dating is that, first of all, number 1 is all internal work. You got to realize what you want, what are you available for. You got to get out of your head and into your body. In my opinion, you have to understand how polarity works and what do you want. And then when you show up on dates, you're just dating. The purpose of dating, ultimately, yes, it is to find a partner. But do you think men think like that? Ultimately, yes, it's at the back of their mind. But when men date, the first, I don't even know, 3, 5 dates, whatever, it's just about having fun and getting to know. I want to get to know you, Waylon. And they're like, I want to get to know this woman. What's your flavor? What do you like? Can we laugh together? When I met my husband, I wasn't thinking about, are you my next husband? Am I looking for a man? So I think the first thing that women really need to do, because it's actually a woman's problem. A woman is thinking, where's this going? Is he going to be my next husband? Get this out of your head and just have fun. Put yourself out there and give men a lot of chances. I think women judge men too soon, too much. First date, he said this and he said this, and I didn't like that. Or he didn't fit my profile, of a matchmaking, whatever. I always say, women, focus on how you feel, right? And your feeling might be a bit off on the first date. Give men chances. So I always say, date, go on at least 3 dates with a man. Do not make any judgments. And see how you feel after a 3rd date. Because look, Waylon, on the first date, everybody can be nervous. This guy could be like, fidgety, especially if you're a beautiful woman with a red lipstick. Oh my God, whatever's like, he has to have the balls and the power and the confidence to even ask you out. Yeah.
So once I remember going on this date with a lady who I wound up dating, and I remember the very first time I saw her, she was walking through farmer's market, and I was like, wow, that was, I was like, that was the most beautiful woman I've ever seen. And at some point we actually met, and I asked her out. I don't remember any of that, but we went to a date. We went on our first date, and I was so nervous that I don't think I was like present very much. It was like we went to a sushi bar where I knew everybody, and I'm like talking with everyone because I know people, and I'm like trying to relax by having other people around who think I'm cool. So the whole time I'm just so nervous. I could barely look at her. It was like staring at the sun. And then when we go outside after the date, for some reason I relaxed. I think because I knew I was just making a mess of the whole thing. Mm-hmm. And so I relaxed, and I said, something like, I would love to see you again. Just very straightforward and kind of sweet and normal. It was like sort of me suddenly. And she said, really? I thought you were having a horrible time in there, because I wouldn't even look at her, So yeah, men are nervous, and I'm not always nervous. It depends on the dynamic and the date, but yes, sometimes we're so nervous.
Absolutely. And Waylon, you said two things there. Number one, you walked on the farmer's market, you saw a woman, you said, this is the most beautiful woman I've seen. A woman, when she sees a man that she's attracted to, she would not think this is the most beautiful man I've seen. See, your language and how you talk about this is so subconscious, right? So a woman would say, a woman would say, like a guy could, yes, he's cute. I mean, obviously we're attracted to beautiful men, but but beauty in a man and his looks is not as important to us at all. It's important how I feel around this guy. So it might be, I'm like walking through the farmer's market, and this guy's kind of standing there, and I don't know, buying tomatoes, and I'm near him and he cracks a joke. Yeah. Or, I like the way he handles a situation. Like that's how I judged how my husband was around situations, how he shows up and how I feel. He might be the most beautiful guy in the world, but if he's like an asshole or a feminine, like it doesn't matter. So that is, you see how the difference is how we perceive each other. Men are very visual. I mean, it's very, very clear. There's nothing wrong with that. In fact, that's how men have been designed. And number two, you said, God, what did I write here? Yes, very important. When you took her to a restaurant, you took her to a sushi restaurant that you knew very well. Yeah. So it's also a tactic that men are using. You're going to take a woman to a place where you're comfortable. Yeah. And that's why for women, I always advise, he will ask you, where do you want to go? And you say, I like this and this and this, you pick. So you're giving a man a chance to actually bring you, and he'll always bring you into a comfortable environment for him, so he can relax a bit more. Because for men, being around a beautiful woman, or a woman in general, that is a lot of work, and women don't know that, right? Yeah. So I love that you shared that story, right?
I love that you
women would give you chances. Yeah.
Sorry, I love that you kind of clarified the 8 p.m. thing to me. For me just now, which is
8 p.m. I love your like 8 p.m. thing.
Yeah, well, that you can say this is the kind of food I like, or let's sit outside, or let's do
absolutely.
Let's go on a picnic. You can say kind of what you want, but then let him figure out exactly how to execute that.
Yeah, and organize it, because that is what's attractive.
That makes sense.
I say, give him choices, tell him what you like, because you also don't want to end up in a restaurant if you don't eat sushi or allergic to salmon. Like that's not right. Exactly. Let him organize it and let him plan and let him tell you what time to be ready, for example, or ask you. Yeah.
And I love going back. I love that you said, if you're not having fun dating, you got to look at that, because dating can be so fun. You just got to, like in Buddhism, we say light touch. Like we got to relax our grip on everything. It's like if you play a sport, baseball or something, you're trying to hit a home run with every single, like this ball is probably my future husband, or future wife. You got to relax. You got to just be present, and then you'll hit the ball, then you're having some fun.
And the way to do that, Waylon, for women specifically, So I'm a feminine embodiment coach. That is, feminine embodiment is a modality that I use to help women shift and transform. That is the basis of my work. And the women I work with who have been in therapy for years and actually are therapists themselves, we have some clients in the program, they report that feminine embodiment is the missing piece. Why? Because relationships and dating and love and intimacy is not a head thing. You can't rationalize, analyze, strategize your way through relationships and dating and intimacy, especially if you're a woman. It has to be in your body. When your body is relaxed and you're not in here, but you're in here, and it's a continuous practice that I teach. It's a daily practice that I do myself. You can just drop down into the body. You can come up on a date. You can sit down and say, hi, how are you? You're not thinking about your to-do lists. You're not thinking about where is this going? Where am I going after? How are you? Right? And then you laugh and you smile and you're present. And if this guy makes a mistake, who cares? You're just there to have fun. You know, that's what we want. And that's what men are looking for. If you're able to do this as a woman, oh my God, the world is your oyster, and you're constantly going to be surrounded by men and women and people in general, because that is what's attractive. A woman who has let go of the facade, has let go of her defense mechanism that I always need to be strong and independent, and who cares? You know, just show up and have fun and be light.
And before you said, when I said something, your body language relaxed. I love when you just said, if you make a mistake, if the guy makes a mistake, who cares? You're just, I don't know quite what you said, but you're just having fun, you know? That feels strong. When I heard that, I was visualizing a date, and I'm like, yeah, that makes the woman so powerful, so relaxed, so embodied, just present, you know? In a funny way, that puts you in command, but in a very different way than the kind of ginned up, almost like war of the sexes that we think about.
Yeah, absolutely. And if something goes wrong and that doesn't feel in your body, you know how to recognize this, and you know how to say, no, this is not okay with me. I do not accept that. Here are my boundaries. And you choose to walk away, and you choose to assert yourself when the situation presents itself. But it doesn't have to be this spiky, always on eggshells that I see in so many women today, because they need to perform, show up, and constantly be in this masculine energy of perform, do, you know, prove that you can do it. Like, we just need to effing relax and just let go. Yeah.
I love that. That should be one of your t-shirts. We just need to relax. We're bumping All right. From Leslie, how can individuals find that special one if they already in their mind want that perfect one that turns them on in many ways? I'm not sure if I understood that. How can individuals find that special one if they already in their mind want that perfect one that turns them on in many ways? So I guess, how do you find your match or your partner if you already have a very clear idea of what you're looking for? And who turns you, and how they, you know, what turns you on?
Well, I'd say that's good. That's good that you know what you want and what turns you on. The question is, I'm assuming, Leslie, you're asking this question because you're not finding that one. Because if you were, then you'd be good. You wouldn't probably be listening to this, or, you know, you would be asking this question. So if
I
you
like that
have
response. It sounds like she knows what she wants.
Sounds like she knows what she wants, but she's not getting that. So the question is why, right? The question is why, and what are you getting? What are you attracting? What are you seeing in men or mirrors? So if you know what you want, let's say you want a man who's assertive, has his shit together, is blah, 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 you know, what are you getting instead? Are you getting the complete opposite of that? Why, right? Maybe you're too rigid in your checklist. Maybe you're, you know, looking for a blue-eyed blonde guy who earns $100,000 a year. You know, that's a bit rigid. So I always say, focus on how you feel. So number one is look at what you're attracting instead and see why, right? If you're attracting emotionally unavailable men, chances are that you yourself are emotionally unavailable. That needs to be fixed and looked at in terms of beliefs and all of that. If you're attracting feminine men who don't take charge, don't know what they want, you're probably too much in your masculine energy when you are with a man. So you need to shift that gear and know how to relax, let go of control. So you see, Waylon, every question that I get from a woman, I have more questions for you.
Yes.
There is no black and white answer.
Well, because I do all this online learning and teaching, and mostly from a Buddhist point of view, but I also teach about writing and stuff. And I feel like the mark of like a charlatan, a mark of someone who's just online selling crap, is they have very ready answers for everything. You have to, in your position, you need to know more. You need to have a dialogue. And I love that. Yeah, I feel like you have some good integrity there. And I love what you said about the checklist. I wrote a book about relationships from a Buddhist point of view, and I had something in there that, like I had a really big checklist, a long checklist. And there was some sense of like, I'm never going to meet anyone who checks all those things off. But I wrote about that, and I kind of held it up against the Buddhist teachings. And I think there's some level of, yeah, you can have your checklist, but at some point you're going to meet a real human being, and you're just going to have to toss it. And nothing's wrong with discernment or looking for certain qualities or attributes, but you kind of also have to let go of some of that. What's your feeling with that checklist thing?
So two things here. Number one, I always tell women, it's good to know what you want. Like, you have to be clear in order to attract what you want and magnetize a man that you want. So, but number one, what I tell women is focus on how you feel. Right? Because my man, and I always tell this story to my clients, they love it. My man was a hell no, Waylon. When I met my man, this guy didn't have any game whatsoever. And I was like, what the hell's going on with this guy? He just randomly was showing up at cafes that I was working at in Colombia. I thought he was just there working, but in fact, he was just showing up.
Like you were on your laptop, you mean?
Yeah, because we were all working online. And he was just looking for an entry point to take me. And the entry point presenting himself, we went on a trip. He was with me, blah, blah, blah. Back then, I didn't care. I was in that energy of like, whatever. I'm not looking for a husband. I'm dating different types of men. I'm available. I don't even care what's going on here, but I'll go with you because I want to have fun. And so what ended up happening on our second trip, he said, oh, do you want to go to this, nearby town in Colombia where Pablo Escobar was born? I'm like, hell yeah, let's go. So I jumped on a motorcycle with him. He took me there. And then we're kind of having fun. We're drinking a little bit of aguardiente, which is, Colombian vodka. And then it's like already 6, 7 p.m. And he says, oh, do you want to like stay overnight so that we can explore the surroundings tomorrow morning? You see what he's doing there. And I'm like sitting there. And, when I was with him at that table, I actually did not feel like an extremely powerful connection or even attraction. In fact, I thought this was kind of boring. But you know what? Knowing me and YOLO, I was in Colombia and I was like, whatever. And I knew where this is going. Like, I knew that if I'm staying overnight and saying yes, we're having sex. Like, I was very clear. I didn't particularly enjoy that. I was like, whatever. I was always that woman who's like, hell yeah. And so it happened. We went to a hotel that was not very nice. And I think he even let me pay for it, which was really bizarre. But anyways, after we spent that night together, I think he was drunk at that point. Honestly, and okay, here you go. When we enter the hotel, he picks up from his bag his toothbrush and his toothpaste. And I'm like, hey, what's going on here? Because he has prepared to stay overnight. And obviously I didn't. I went on a day trip, Waylon. He packed his toothbrush, so you can see how the masculine mind works. So anyways, long story short, we come back after that trip. I record a message to my girlfriend and I say, hey, Lisa, I thought men at 40 know what the hell they're doing with women in bed. Apparently not. This was one of the most disappointing experiences that I had with a man.
And this is the man you're now in love with.
This is the man. And I said, hell no, I'm not seeing this guy again. And then, things have happened. I was texting with the other guys or whatever. And at some point, because he was we went to a bar one night and I remember I took him out and I said, stop wasting your time on me. This is not working. Like, I was so not into it. Well, it was weird. Yeah. Like, the guy didn't have any game. And then what happened is that the ATM machine that I was in Colombia, it ate my debit card where I was getting paid and everything. So I didn't have any money. I was in a very difficult situation. And String was the guy who I was kind of talking to, and he kept messaging me. And I was like, whatever, this is just a guy. So I shared with him what happened. So he shows up very seriously and says, how much money do you need? And I was like, I don't know, $1,500 to pay my rent, and until I figure this out. He says the money is going to be on your table tomorrow. You can return when you're ready. And I was like, okay. So it was not about the money. He always jokes he bought me for $1,500, but the money was there on the table, Waylon. Yeah. And I saw this as an act of, I was quite surprised because this guy showed up. Right. And after that, something
that's a powerful statement. That, up until now in this story, he wasn't necessarily, I mean, he was asking you out, he was sticking around, he was packing his toothpaste and toothbrush, but he wasn't necessarily powerful in your mind. But that's a powerful statement of, I'll take care, kind of what you were saying about you want to be taken care of on some level.
Yeah, he showed up and he really, took care of it. Like, I felt like I was like, interesting. I could probably trust this guy, And then through this story, I was kind of opening up to him, and I saw him in a very different light from then onwards. And one story short, from that point on, I saw him very differently, and how he showed up, and we started having the best sex of our lives and went on different trips and everything. 2 months later, he's like, let's go to Mexico.
Your whole connection flipped or twisted.
Yeah, and that's what I'm saying. And I asked him before, where was your game? He was like, well, that was my game. He wasn't the guy who would aggressively go for it or whatever, which is quite attractive. Yeah. But I gave him a lot of chances. I didn't just dismiss him or whatever. He kept trying. And I gave him chances, and at some point he really showed up. And to this day, he's I never had doubts about, is he going to show up or not? I could trust this man with my heart, with my physical, with my body, with my everything. And that polarity continued through, we've been together now 5+ years, married for 3.5, second child on the way.
Yeah. And in an ironic way, that allows you to relax on that intimate front. And then you can tackle and your career and your ambition fully in a focused way. Yeah. When you're doing
I can also, Waylon, relax, because I can do what I love without having on top of my mind, how are we going to pay the bills tomorrow? Because I trust him to take care of that. And I believe that every man has the capacity and the ability to take care of himself, his woman, and at least one child. So that she doesn't have, of course, we make all the financial decisions together. I'm very much involved, because I know how to make my own money. If anything happens tomorrow, I'm out there in the job market. I'm taking care of myself and my daughter and everything. But I choose to let go of that part and to trust him, to take care of the bills, to take care of our survival, so I can focus on doing what I love. And I'm not stressed and pressured, oh my God, what are we going to eat tomorrow? But that's just the choice that I make in our relationship.
This is so interesting. I mean, it's so interesting hearing, what you teach from a point of view of Boulder, Colorado, where it's, you talk about feminine men. I mean, I think you would get eaten alive by a pack of independent women who would not have that. Men are sort of almost secondary here. It's like a Star Trek episode where men are almost going extinct. We're not really relevant here. And women are empowered and strong and kind of kick-ass and fabulous, but they do have that question that you have in your article, which is where are all the good, and there are good men, and I know a lot of good relationships in my community of friends, but there is a sense that at the end of the day, where are the goddamn good men? Yeah,
but both are unhappy, Waylon. Both are unhappy in that dynamic. And so the women can march and complain and get more and more empowered, but at one time she's going to have to ask a question, right? Why? What is really happening here? And that's what, to me, that's what's driving my work, right? Because both are unhappy. A woman who has everything that she wants, but she doesn't have a man by her side who she can respect and be attracted to and trust, is not a woman who's happy and fulfilled. If she says that she is, she might be, but deep down inside, based on my experience, and I might be wrong, but I've worked with hundreds and thousands of women that I've asked, that is the case. A woman wants to be taken, ravished, You know, a woman's like that powerful, successful woman you're talking about. What does she want in the bedroom? She wants to be thrown on the bed, bended over, and made love to. That's what she wants, if you ask really what she wants in the bedroom. But chances are she also wants that in life with her man. She wants to feel that presence in him, that no matter what's going on in her emotional storm and chaos, he's standing there strong and he can hold space for her.
I want you to, have you written a book?
I'm in the process of it, Waylon. Thanks for asking. I want you
to write a book, publish it, come to Boulder, and give this talk to Boulder women, and I will help host. I will protect you if
you tell these women to sign up for my webinar, and hopefully something will open up.
But you will need security. So Sinead of Facebook actually has a question exactly about what you were just talking about. And this could be the last question. We've already gone for, I don't know, an hour plus. What about the women who are fulfilled by work, success, drive, and ambitious for themselves, but not just wanting to be a mother? So what about women who are fulfilled by work, success, drive, ambition, and don't have interest in being a partner or a mother?
That's great.
Yeah.
What about them?
That's the question. I don't know anything more.
I don't know. If that's your choice, then that's your choice. You know, I have women in my program who don't want to be mothers.
But I think you just kind of said, like, a woman is not going to be happy, even if she has all the success in the professional sphere, and maybe even with her friends sphere, but if she doesn't have a lover or a partner or a match, she won't be happy. Did you say that, or did I get confused?
I did say that, and what I hope I said most women, because again, there's a danger here. I don't want to generalize and say everyone is like this, right? Because not everyone is like this. And if it works for you and you are fulfilled by your career and business and everything, and there's no problem. Like, I work with women who actually have an issue and saying, I have all of this, but I'm actually not fulfilled in my dynamics with men. Whether you want to be a mother or not, it doesn't actually matter here. Most women still want to be mothers, Waylon. Like, I say most. I don't want to generalize. I apologize if I said all women, because it's not everyone. But what about women who are, I'm that woman who's fulfilled by her career and her business and everything, but I'm also the woman who's fulfilled by being a mother, by being a wife. And I would say that a lot of women, if not most women, want to have both of worlds. If you're a woman who's very much fulfilled by one aspect of your life and you don't want a partner, or you are fulfilled with what you've got, then that's perfectly fine. No judgment there. You know, I'm not here to convince you of anything. If things work for you, then that's great, right? Okay.
Yeah. No, I love that. And then that allows you to relax and say, is this something I want? I'm not being judged. Is this something I want?
Yeah, in my experience, however, I want to say in my experience, and again, I might be generalizing here, is that for most women, that is not enough. That is just not enough for most women, right?
Yeah.
They want to be with a partner, and a lot of the women still want to have children and will always want to have children, right? But if that's not your case, then that's fine. Great.
Yeah. All right, one more question. I'm being told there's another good question is from a man. So from Robert, what is final question and a final reminder, Anna, we can do a webinar with you, a free webinar, and there should be a link in the sidebar and a link for your article, which I loved. The third time I read it, I loved. The second time I liked it.
And now you're absolutely like a convert. You want to take me to Boulder.
I do. I like it. Well, I think I like having, in America particularly, as you may know from the Trump years, we're very weak at being able to have fun, having healthy disagreements or even dialogues. Because I don't know that I disagree with much here, but there's a lot to unpack here. I mean, we
absolutely
could. Yeah. Anyway, Robert's question is, what is your theory for maintaining a relationship? So you meet, some great guys, Strang, is that his name? Then how do you maintain that from your school of thought?
You maintain it in the same way. Great question. We actually work with a few women who are in relationships already, who are with a man, but the polarity is reversed, meaning that this woman has taken on too much on her plate, and her man is kind of just sitting by and letting her take charge, letting her make all the decisions, all the money and everything. And for that particular woman, that is exhausting. That's what I call reversed polarity. And she's coming to work with us because she wants to change that dynamic. She wants her man to step up and take care of his life and also take care of her and their baby, because she's exhausted and burnt out. So the answer to that, and that's why I love doing this work, especially working with single women, because if you do this right from the beginning of your dating life, let's say letting a man take charge, knowing about polarity, letting him step up, knowing that you choose, right? Let them compete for you, all of that, that funnel with intention. What this is going to do is it's going to almost like, obviously there's no guarantees in life, but you're going to end up with a man who stands strong in his masculine because you know how to lean back and let him, and ultimately claim you, and I know claim is a very strong word, but claim you as his woman, propose to you, let's say, get in a marriage, in a relationship, whatever, and you're going to maintain that polarity. So when I work with women, Waylon, I'm not interested in some, there's all this stuff and all these testimonials about I got engaged or I got married. You won't see that on my website, because that is not my goal. If my goal was to get a woman engaged and get married, I could totally do that, because as a woman, and every woman knows this, we can totally screw a man's head, and we can make him propose, and we can make him fall in love with us. And there's many techniques that a woman can do using seduction, using her body, using her sexuality. I'm going now into the toxic femininity realm, but that is not my goal. My intention with working with women is giving a woman tools that she can use long-term, sustainably, to maintain that polarity. So the answer to that question from Robert is how do you maintain that polarity in relationship once you've got a man who's in his masculine? This is what I'm working with women on. It's continuous work, and it's still to this day. I'm in a happily married relationship with a man who's in his masculine. I'm still dropping into my body, still dropping on my hands and knees and doing my flow, because life happens as a woman who's running her business, and I have to make a lot of decisions, show up here, right, and express and all of that. I'm human, and I get bogged down with life, and it's very stressful for my system as a woman. So I use the practices every day. Sometimes I'm on my hands and knees for 45 minutes. Yeah. And so how you maintain that is you use the same principles. As a woman, a lot of women, when they get into relationships and marriages, what they do is that they think, all right, my job is done. I got claimed. I'm married. That's it. We have kids. He's locked in. It's all good, right?
Yeah.
And then she starts going on this treadmill of control, and trying to hold everything and manage everything, and that leads to unhappiness either, because she lets it go. As you know, relationships are, I don't want to say work, because that's really kind of a lot, but it's a constant dance. When my man does something that upsets me, which happens because we're human, my first question is, how does that feel, and what is that about? It's not to react, right, and to say you did this and blah blah blah. It's about taking that radical responsibility for how I feel. What is this about? Does this need to be communicated? Is this a boundary that needs to be taken? Can I drop on my hands and knees and flow through that? Is this really important for me to focus on or not? Can I let it go? The biggest compliment that my man has given me, 2 things. I feel free with you, and you're easy. This is what men want in relations and in marriages, a woman who's easy and free. Doesn't mean that she's like this pretending to be easy, right, but it means that she's totally responsible for her own emotional state. She has the tools on how to deal with that internally first. Yeah. And then to come up to him and say, look, this isn't working for me. This is how you're an amazing husband. I love this. This particular thing isn't working for me. Don't like how it feels. Let's figure this out, right? That's how you maintain that. It's all in the polarity, in the tools. And of course, sometimes it's also going into your belief system about men, because so many women are in marriages with men, but they believe that they can't trust, she can't trust him. She can't let go. And that's a problem. Yeah.
Good stuff, Anna. So fun. So rich. Yeah, I'm delighted that this is my job and I get to talk with you today. It was so
Thank
fun.
you.
Yeah, and it's helpful for me because I think I have this basic belief, which is well-intentioned, that, I'm engaged with my fiance, with my girlfriend, that, I really have to. It's funny because I was very assertive. I know, I've been single, so I know what I want in my life, and if I don't know what I want, I know how I'm going to figure it out. I'm on the path to figuring it out. And as she's become part of me and part of my world, I've stopped being as clear about what I want because I start being more like, what do you want? This is sort of what, it helps me understand, and I've seen this throughout the relationship with her, when she's in a good place, when I've helped her feel warm, like she runs cold, her hands are cold, her feet are cold. We have a hot water bottle. I'm always making a hot water bottle for her at night. When I can get her in a state where she feels comfortable and cozy and loving, and, she's cuddling and she will like rub my hand or my arm like constantly. It's so loving, and it's almost like she's not even doing it intentionally. I'm like, okay, she's in good state. So there is this thing of like, I do need to take care of her, and that's okay. It doesn't mean that she's not a powerful person, and at the same time, she does need to take care of her own emotional state. And I need to take care of mine. We need to check in with ourselves first instead of knee-jerk, like dishes. That's why everyone's always talking about the dishes or whatever. These petty little everyday things that we forget to check in with how are we feeling? I love that.
Yeah, absolutely. And that is a quality when you feel like your man is taking care of you and he cares and he warms your hands.
Right.
It's such a different feeling for a woman to feel that than for a man to feel that. It's the question is always like, as a woman, do you like to be spooned at night, or do you want a spoon? I mean, I actually like to turn around, kind of put my hand around my man, but that lasts for about 5 minutes. We actually together turn around, and he covers me with his big body, and that makes me feel so, and that's how I actually fall asleep really quickly. So
I think there's a photo of him covering you with his big body in your article.
Yeah. In my we've done a photo shoot around that. Yeah,
I love that. Yeah, I like to cuddle a lot, and then when I want to go to sleep, I like to be far away. I like to have my space.
Have your space. Yeah, I mean, ultimately we kind of spread, but essentially it's this idea of a woman being physically smaller and a man. We have that sense of like, I want to be held and I want to be taken, and that's a feeling that so many women relate to, and they want that from a man, and that is the beauty of polarity, and that's why I'm so obsessed with that. I see the world today. I go outside and I see polarity everywhere. I could sit at a restaurant and be like, here's what's happening on this table, here's what's happening on this table. It's fascinating.
It is fascinating. Yeah. Well, thank you, Anna. I've kept you far too long, but please check out her free webinar, and hopefully we'll do many more. This is so fun.
Yeah, thanks so much, Waylon. It was really fun. Thank you.
Yeah. Everyone check out her webinar, check out her article, and Anna, thank you so much.
Thanks so much, Waylon. Bye.
Bye.